Yeah, and that brought up an idea. This is something I've thought about. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen. It's kind of just me, speculating and having fun. But we know free agency is pretty awful next offseason. I mean, but a guy I've looked at is Anthony Rendon. 2019 had an MVP level season, won a World Series, signs the big 7-year contract. Hasn't been able to stay healthy with the Angels. But we've seen the Angels. They acquired Mike Moustakas. They have Gio Urshela. And for the Angels, with the impending free agency of Shohei Ohtani, you think they want to be buyers this deadline. Maybe Erod makes a lot of sense for them. And maybe the Detroit Tigers could take on an Anthony Rendon's contract, send them Eduardo Rodriguez, and in return, the Tigers would be able to get more prospects because they're taking on that contract of Anthony Rendon. Because here's the other thing, too. The Angels, if they want to bring back Ohtani, they're going to have to pay him a lot of money. So that would even give them more incentive to get off that Anthony Rendon contract while getting Eduardo Rodriguez to help him make a playoff push this year. So I think that makes a lot of sense for both teams. And the Tigers need a third baseman. And now I'm not saying Anthony Rendon is going to go back to an MVP level player, but he certainly was better what Nick Maton was doing. So he could, slot him in as your starting third baseman next year. And I think he'll have 3 years left on the contract. So it'll be a pretty big contract, but
how much money's left on it? Do you know?
I mean, I'm sure he's making close to $30 million a year, but I mean, you have Miguel Cabrera's contract coming off the books, so you're gonna have money. And if there's not a free agent, like, are you really gonna want to give Matt Chapman a 6 or 7 year deal this offseason? I'd rather just see what Anthony Rendon can give you for a couple years. And I know the Angels don't have the best farm system, but I'm sure there's some players Scott Harris could look at and identify to get in a potential Erod Anthony Rendon swap. So I think that was kind of a fun idea I had, but it'll be really interesting to see. But I think taking on money to get prospects, I think that's a fantastic idea. And
well, they have the money to do it. I mean, they've kept payroll low. Chris Ilitch, if he wants to dip in and do that, all he has to do is tell Scott Harris, get it done. And then they go out and find a deal that works. At some point, ownership has to invest in the team. Again, is now the time, or are they going to wait? It's always easier to wait. And waiting means you do nothing, and doing nothing is very simple, right? So I don't know. There's so many different ways they could go. If they win the next, let's say they sweep Oakland and take 2 out of 3 from Toronto this weekend. You go into the All-Star break basically having played, 6-7 games above 500 in your last dozen. That really changes. That might change what they want to do. That'll come from ownership too. Will he put the brakes on selling anything because he wants to win? We don't know. He never talks about it.
The Anthony Rendon contract after this year, so it'll be 2024, 2025, and 2026, $38 million a year.
Ooh.
That is a hefty contract. But if I'm looking at Logan O'Hoppe, I believe that's how you say his name. O'Hoppe. I'm looking at him. I don't know if the Angels would want to move him, but if they want to get off that contract, because you got to think long term. Shohei Ohtani is getting paid over $40 million a year. If they want any chance of keeping him, getting off that $38 million while also getting Eduardo Rodriguez, I think, trading O'Hoppe, I think it's worth it for the Angels. So again, just kind of a fun little idea I had, but
sure. Well, it's you need to be creative, because you would hope that the people in Detroit are being creative. And, there's always ways to get around it. I mean, if the Angels want to get out from under that contract, they could pay half of it. That could be done too. So I would lean toward Anthony Rendon being closer to washed than closer to being good. But, you do have to take chances sometimes. And he certainly has in his background some good production. He just has a lot of injuries. That's what I'd be most afraid of.